Hi everyone, Emily here from Emily Reads, and today is day 19. So, full transparency, I filmed about 20 minutes of this video and then my phone stopped filming because I ran out of storage. So, here we go. Take two because I don't know how to edit. So, we're going to try this again. I've already opened up the box on my advent calendar. I pulled out cinnamon hazelnut. Woo! Okay, so maybe this is a good thing. Maybe it'll help me to talk more concisely about my books. So here we go. I'm going to show off the books and talk about the books that I loved in middle school, high school, college. So in middle school, we read in 8th grade, The Chosen by Chaim Potok. And this is about two boys, Reuven Malter and Danny Saunders, I think. Or is it Danny Malter and Reuven Saunders? I don't know. I don't remember their last names. It's Reuven and Danny. I know that much. Reuven is he's Orthodox Jewish. Danny is Hasidic, and they are growing up they're teenagers in New York City during World War II, and they meet playing baseball, and it's just about how their worlds collide and what does it mean to be Jewish during this time period, and Orthodox Jewish and Hasidic Jewish, and how to live out their faith as they are also being exposed to more modern ideas. I also we read this in the 7th grade, and we actually read it with the original title. I'm glad that it was changed, though. And then There Was None by Agatha Christie, and I read this again as an adult, and I still love this isolated murder mystery as 10 strangers are invited to an island and they get murdered one by one. If you have not read it, you need to read this book. What are you waiting for? In high school, sorry, books are falling over. What did I read in high school? Oh, high school, the Joy Luck Club. I took a modern U.S. novel class, and the Joy Luck Club by Amy Tan is just beautifully written. It's a story of mothers and daughters, and the mothers were born and raised in China, and it's their backstory about their lives in China, and then their daughters are first generation born in America, and of course their relationships, which sometimes there can be tensions, right? And just the parallels that their lives have taken, and the hopes and the dreams that the mothers have for their daughters, and it's just so beautiful and so moving. She became one of my favorite authors during this time period. In college, I was an English major, and I loved reading Hamlet by William Shakespeare. Now, I will be honest, say that I am not a big Shakespeare fan. I want to love him more than I do, but I don't, because he's just very hard to read. I mean, we don't talk the way that Shakespearean people talk in his plays, and plays were meant to be performed. But what I love about Hamlet is the whole, did the trauma of his uncle murdering his father and then marrying his mother, did that cause him to have a break? And does he now have mental illness? Is he insane? Or is Hamlet super smart and acting and pretending that he is mentally ill in order, to trap his uncle into a confession? Like, it's just brilliant writing. And to be or not to be, that whole soliloquy, like, again, is Hamlet, does he want to unalive himself, or is he just contemplating what is the meaning of life in the midst of all of this? Like, it's so good. And Ophelia and the lack of the discussion on the lack of female agency, it's just so good and so tragic. Another book that I read in college that I absolutely loved. Well, it's not a book. We didn't read the whole thing in here. We just read the titular short story, and that is The Yellow Wallpaper by Charlotte Perkins Gilman. And this is a short story about a woman she's postpartum, And she was prescribed what's called the rest cure. And for the rest cure, you don't do anything. You just sit around. You're not allowed to work. You're not allowed to take care of your baby. You just rest and relax, because that's the problem. The reason why women have problems is because, their womb is not in the right place, and we just got to rest so that way the womb could go back to their right place in our bodies, right? Of course not. But it literally, like, this was a legit thing that women were prescribed, a rest cure after delivering babies. And she and her husband and her new baby, they move into this home, and the room that she is resting in has yellow wallpaper in it. And she's just staring at it all day, and she sees things in the wallpaper. And it's basically, she just descends into a deep mental illness. And Charlotte Perkins Gilman, she was prescribed the rest cure herself by the doctor who founded this movement. And she wrote the yellow wallpaper instead of following doctor's directions. And she gave it to her doctor and said, had I followed what you told me to do, this is what would have happened to me. It's just such a good story, and it just, the ending imagery, like, so good. I need to read it again. It's been far too long. It's a fascinating study in psychology. I love it. Another book that I read, I actually student taught part of this, and that is The Lord of the Flies by William Golding. And I actually got this recently, a brand new-ish copy at a used book sale, and I took my book that had all my underlinings and notes in it, and I put that in a free little library, because I was like, I want to read this again with fresh eyes. But this is, the world is about to go, it's on the brink of another world war, and a plane crashes on an island, and it's just these bunch of schoolboys on this island, and the society breaks down into just chaos, and it's just so good. I know some people don't like it. I think it's just, again, a fascinating depiction of human nature and how we act when all limits are taken away from us. Another book that I read, and actually I wrote my senior thesis on this, and I would have the other play up too. I guess I should have brought that other play too. So Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf? And then I also, my senior thesis was on Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf by Edward Albee, and The Taming of the Shrew by William Shakespeare. And this is the story of Martha and George, and they are having a dinner party with another young couple, and it's just the breakdown of a marriage on display for this couple that they've invited over for dinner. It's wild. But I wrote my senior thesis comparing this to The Taming of the Shrew, and looking at what is a shrew? Like, what is a shrew by definition, and therefore by definition, who is the shrew in each play? And what does shrew taming entail? And like, not only historically, but then also within these plays, and just the violence that is entailed with shrew taming. Yeah, really good. Another book that I loved, I actually read it in high school, and I absolutely hated it in high school. I was not ready for it in high school. In fact, I don't think many high schoolers are ready for this book. I think the themes in it are just, like, it's not part of our world in high school. And I'm of the belief that a lot of canonical work that we teach in high school, we should not be teaching in high school because we're just not ready for it. It's not interesting. And like there are other books that are rich, that have rich themes that we can read, that are more on level with what students are dealing with, that are more captivating for their interests, because we want to make students into lifelong readers and learners. But I read this story in college, and I absolutely loved it in college. And I don't have it to show you because I no longer have it. But that story is The Scarlet Letter by Nathaniel Hawthorne. I loved it in college. In high school, I was like, this is ghastly. Like the language, I just don't understand it. And the themes are just like, bleh. In college, I love delving into the themes and the symbolism of, like, what is Pearl? Is she really innocent, or does she really know more? And how unfair it is that Hester is being punished, and we know who the father is and he's not. And actually, how unfair and misogynistic Nathaniel Hawthorne is, that the father, who we're in a Puritan society, the father, by biblical standards, should be held into an even higher standard because he has a higher calling. And according to the Bible, therefore, he is held to a higher moral code than anyone. Pastors are held to a higher moral code than anyone. And yet the father, who's the reverend, he's redeemed at the end. And Hester Prynne is not. Why? Because she's a woman. Ugh. I loved the discussions. And the last book I have, again, I don't have with me. I got rid of it. I don't know why. Why didn't I keep that shelf trophy? I don't know why, but I got rid of it. Is Moby Dick. Yes, I loved reading Moby Dick. Here's why. First of all, come on, call me Ishmael. What a beautiful, amazing first line. Because as soon as we read that, we know, like, when we've got this narrator who's giving himself his name, his agency, Ishmael. Like, what does Ishmael mean? Like, where do we find that name? Oh, that name is from the Bible. And who was Ishmael in the Bible? Like, the son of Abraham and his concubine, and that, he was outcast. And so, man, our narrator is an outcast. And then how does that all play out? Awesome. I loved the theme of good and evil, and is Ahab really good, or is he really evil? Is Moby Dick the whale, is he good, or is he really evil? Like, I love it when literature isn't black and white, but we've got shades of gray and discussion. Now, there are parts of that book that were just awful to read. I'm not gonna lie. The chapters where we're talking about, like, the different types of spears, the different types of whales, how to hunt a whale, I thought were ghastly. My professor actually was like, you know what? Here are some chapters that I'm not requiring you to read. Melville put them in for I love this word and I'm going to mispronounce it. Verimisit. It starts with a V. Verisimilitude. Basically, he put it in there to make it seem like this was a true story, and to try to make it look more true. Like, we know that it's a fiction work, but and so he put it in there for that, and so therefore you don't have to read those chapters. Now, I was the person that said, you know what, Moby Dick is supposed to be the greatest American novel. I'm going to read it. Every word. I'm going to read every word. And so I did. Do I regret that? No. I'm glad I did. If I were to read again, would I read those chapters? Nope. I'd skip right on over them so I could have all the plot, which was so good. Yeah. So those are the books that I read in my schooling that I just thought were fantastic. Some honorable mentions that I had, that I'm going to just talk about really quickly. To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. I mean, classic coming of age story, about a girl growing up in the South during the time of the Jim Crow laws being in effect and racism being full on effect, and Atticus Finch, who takes the case defending Boo Radley, and it's just a beautiful story. Another honorable mention that I enjoyed was Slaughterhouse-Five. I read this in college by Kurt Vonnegut, just about the absurdism of war. Portrait of the Artist's Young Man by James Joyce. I don't like stream of consciousness. Like, I did not like really pretty much anything I read by Virginia Woolf, but I loved this book. I thought it was brilliant. But again, stream of consciousness, very intimidating for me. And in high school, I also loved Catch-22 by Joseph Heller. Again, another anti-war novel about the absurdity of war, and we get a character named Major. Like, how cool is that? Was there any book that you've read in school that just you remember to this day, good or bad, preferably good? Let me know in the comments below, and happy reading. As always, please like and subscribe. Bye.